So, some of the memories that I have were around the grades 2 through 4. For some reason, this was a hot time for me in the area of romance, and I have really cool stories that I can remember. One story involves me sitting on a carpet in my second grade classroom. We're all on a carpet at the end of the day, waiting for our story time. And I remember there was a boy, his name was Keith. I remember his name. And we were all sitting cross-legged, just like this, on the carpet. I think we were sitting toward the back of the carpet. I think I always kind of sat in the back. And I remember he reaches over like this. He puts his arm around the side of my waist, and we just sit there. No words were exchanged. And there was no conversation after this, and I don't believe there was any conversation before that. But I remember we were just sitting there as if a couple at the back of this second grade story time. And that memory is stained into my brain. Another memory is very similar. This was 3rd or 4th grade, and it was a gym class. And again, I'm sitting in the back. There was a boy named Daquan. Also remember his name. And we were, at this point, we were like kneeling. Like we had our knees down and we were kind of upright. And I remember he reaches over and grabs my hand. And we're just holding hands. So I don't know if I can properly express how romantic this was. Even in hindsight, I'm thinking this was a blessing, for someone to be able to experience something like that as a young girl who was very shy, even in those years. So with this circumstance, it was the same thing. I never dated this person, and I don't remember us ever saying anything about having held hands. No words were exchanged. So then I know for sure in 4th grade, there was a boy in my class. His name was Joanne. I remember names now, all right? I do remember this, and perhaps later in this story you'll understand why that's even important. But I remember we were in the same class. He was very shy. He was very introverted, as I was. I think he was new to the class as well, somewhere throughout the school year. So he was in a bit of a sensitive position. But I remember somehow he managed to ask me to date him. I said yes. So what we did as a couple was, after school, we'd get off the school bus. We lived in the same neighborhood. We got off the school bus, and he would walk me home. He would walk me home. And I remember my sister once saw us coming home, and she's like, "What is this? You have a boyfriend?" And me in 4th grade, this was I just happened to have this gift of romance just being attracted to me. And I'm saying that because this is despite the fact that I was very shy. I never made any moves. Now, as a woman, growing up in that culture and that time, wasn't really necessary for me to make any moves, and perhaps would have been a problem if I did. But yeah, that was an element to the story that I consider to be God's grace over my life concerning romance and concerning men. Another story involves that same neighborhood. There was a boy that I recall very clearly that I had a crush on. And I remember we were not in the same class, we were not in the same grade. But I do remember during lunchtime, sitting in the cafeteria, I would be eating my food and I would look up, and from across the cafeteria, I would catch eyes with him. We would see each other, we might smile at each other. I never waved, it was never anything very bold or very outright, addressing him, but it was always something very sweet and very romantic. It was something that I looked forward to during my days. And I remember we ended up one day meeting in our neighborhood. Somehow we met in our neighborhood and we were walking behind the houses. It was almost like marshlands, like there was like a pond, but then there were like little streams and just little kind of flooded areas. There was lots of grass, lots of swans and cattails and all kinds of creatures in that backyard area. And I remember just walking back there with him one day. The sun was setting. I remember that clearly. And that day I had my first kiss. So again, only by God's grace, I had a very romantic younger life.